Hello everyone, good evening. I'm Shreya Dhondial. As the cold approaches the heights of eastern Ladakh, Indian troops are readying to spend another bitter winter in the region. 17 months into the standoff, there has been disengagement in some areas, but there is no sign of the Chinese going back to status quo ante, which means to positions they held before the standoff began. In fact, with the massive civil and military infrastructure build-up along the 3,488-kilometer LAC, all indications are that the Chinese are going nowhere, that the LAC has changed forever. What do we expect in the coming months? Is there still a possibility that there could be a flare-up at the India-China border? And can we rely on Quad allies for help if that happens? Is an insecure China digging in its tents in the face of India's growing closeness to America? All that over the next 30 minutes. Let's start with China's massive infrastructure push along the LAC and the clear intent it is signaling. In February this year, as Indian and Chinese tanks and troops withdrew from Pangong So, there was a sense that the crisis had eased. In the months that followed, a disengagement in Gogra was announced. Hot Springs, Demchok and Depsang, the other friction points remain, and the Chinese have made all the right noises about peace at the border. But China's intent is clear with the massive infrastructure build-up that they have been busy with at the LAC, consolidating their military positions and upgrading air bases facing India. Latest intelligence inputs indicate new modular accommodation in 8 more forward locations across eastern Ladakh, the theatre of the 17-month-old standoff. This is in addition to the many more semi-permanent shelters that have come up across the region. A clear indication that the Chinese are in no mood to de-induct troops from the front line anytime soon and are readying for prolonged forward deployment. Both the Indian and Chinese armies have 50,000 troops each in the Ladakh theatre, and all indications are they will be spending another bitter winter weathering temperatures that will dip down to -50 degrees. In the last 1 year, China has invested big money developing new airstrips and helipads all along the LAC, stretching from Ladakh to Arunachal Pradesh. All its major air bases facing India, like Hotan, Kashgar and Nyangchi, have been upgraded and beefed up with additional fighter jets. India's Air Chief R.K.S. Bhaduria says India is watching and doing what it needs to.
They have spent a lot of energy in terms of building infrastructure at many of their airfields. I would say instead of aggressive, it is defensive in nature, because they have analyzed as to what all can be hit by us quickly in case the situation requires. Some other methods that they've done to bring in more efficiency in their air operations, and those are the things that we are watching carefully. Of course, we are doing our own upgrades in terms of our exercises and whatever is required. Sensors, weapons, new integrations, and actions across the board are being taken. So we are much more capable than we were 1 year back.
Rafale fighters have been inducted at the Hashimara Air Base to strengthen the IAF's capability in the eastern sector. To tackle any airstrikes from India, the PLA has deployed 2 Russian-origin S-400 surface-to-air missile batteries along with anti-aircraft systems. India's S-400s from Russia start coming in this December. Satellite images show a major upgrade and extension of the Tianwen-Diang highway that leads up to the Depsang Plains, which is just 24 kilometers away from India's highest airfield, Daulag Beg Oldie. Road construction, especially in the Depsang and DBO sector, means the Chinese are preparing for faster deployments. India too is beefing up its infrastructure and building roads and bridges. The prophecy of a long haul has come true. Vikram Misri, India's ambassador to China, in a seminar has said that in bilateral issues, changing goalposts doesn't help, that Indian and Chinese sides have adhered to a well-understood distinction between resolving the boundary question and managing border affairs. At the root of the India-China conflict is the difference in perception of the LAC. And this stretches back to at least 1914, when representatives from Britain, the Republic of China and Tibet gathered in Shimla to negotiate a treaty that would determine the status of Tibet and effectively settle the border between China and British India. The Chinese refused to sign the deal on the Mcmohan line, and the wound has festered ever since.
"16 months since clashes in Galwan. 12 rounds of talks between the Indian and Chinese side, but hardly any headway on the border dispute. If anything, Beijing is only trying to muddy the waters and stall any negotiation. But it's a tactic they've relied on over the years. 1962, independent India's first full-blown border war with China. It lasted 32 days and killed more than 1,300 Indian soldiers, and left us with a border dispute ranging from Ladakh to Arunachal Pradesh. The genesis of the conflict was the Mcmohan Line. It was signed between British India and Tibet in 1913-1914, but China was never a signatory. As a counter, China came up with its own claim line, which described Arunachal Pradesh as South Tibet. In 1967, clashes erupted at Nathula and Chola that connected Sikkim. More than 300 Chinese soldiers and 150 Indian troops were killed. "20 years later, both sides squared off near Daulat Beg Oldi. The ill-defined and not acknowledged border issue meant that tensions kept simmering. Even in the aftermath of Galwan, the Chinese accused India of complicating the border dispute. But India's ambassador in China, Vikram Misri, countered that with this sharp response. He said, and I quote,
"A series of violation of peace and tranquility in the border areas naturally requires us to apply our minds on the basis of established agreements, protocols and mechanism to resolve it. As we do so, any attempt to confuse border affairs with the boundary question is a disservice to the work of those involved in finding solutions."
Even dialogue at the top leadership level of both sides has resulted in little movement.
The relationship right now is going through a very difficult phase. It's going through a very difficult phase because in violation of agreements and understandings of many, many years, the Chinese have deployed a very large part of the military on the and close to the line of actual control and without explanation.
Another round of military-level talks are slated to take place soon. As things stand, friction points at the hot springs, Depsang Plains and Demchok remain far from resolved, with thousands of frontline troops from both sides deployed eyeball to eyeball. Until Beijing gives up its expansionist designs, any negotiated term will be short-lived until the next PLA misadventure. With Rajiv Kumar, Anisya Kumar for CNN News 18.
We are still awaiting dates for a 13th co-commander level talk between India and China to try and see if other friction points, there can be some resolution or agreement as far as other friction points are concerned. Now, there is a mechanism in place to resolve the boundary question as well. It was instituted way back in 2003. It is called the Special Representatives Mechanism, but an agreement has been elusive for the last 20 years or so. India's current special representative is Ajit Doval, the NSA of the country. Wang Yi, China's foreign minister, represents China in this forum. Let me get in my guests this evening on Debrief. Lieutenant General Atta Hasnain is joining us on the show. So is Ambassador Rajiv Dogra. Thank you both gentlemen for being with us here on the show. General Hasnain, let me start with you. On paper, at least, India and China are in talks to resolve the 17-month-old standoff. There has been some movement. One cannot disagree with that. There has been disengagement in Pangong Tso, in Galwan, in Gogra. And yet, China continues to build its border infrastructure at breakneck speed. What does this indicate? What do you make of this?
Shreya, thank you first of all for having me on your show. Yes, we are in the month of September now, almost the end of September. 6 weeks from now, snows would have come into Ladakh. The Chinese obviously have not had a very comfortable time last winter, and they're fully aware of this. But that's not the only issue of comfort for troops. The whole issue revolves around the fact that they too perhaps have perceptions of Indian capabilities, something which India did not project so offensively in the past. But now, definitely, with 50,000 troops having built up in Ladakh, the Chinese too are reasonably worried. We heard the air chief talking about their development of their airfield infrastructure in Bhutan and places like in Xinjiang and things like that. Obviously, they have a disadvantage as far as the air is concerned and would like to enhance their overall capability. Secondly, the PLA has modernized at a very rapid pace. And it's got a tremendous amount of heavy equipment, heavy tanks, heavy artillery, lots of missiles and things like that. They need the movement of, they need to move all this. For that, you need better roads, better bridges, better capability. Besides that, modern ammunition of today is something that we need to realize. Modern ammunition of today needs storage.
Correct.
And that storage cannot just be crudely in the open. So a modern army today needs that infrastructure. Not to say that the Indian army is not doing it this side. In equally hectic pace, I think this development is going on our side too. But there is a tremendous terrain advantage which the PLA enjoys in Ladakh. For them, it's just plain a rolling country. In our case, it is the movement from Pathankot right up to Leh, from Leh across the Changla Pass into the bowl of the Pengong Tso and places like that. So all this is happening at breakneck speed, no doubt. I'm not certain that there is a clear intent to go to war on either side. It is preparedness which is reaching a higher level. 50,000 troops have not been deployed in this area for long, neither the Chinese side nor the Indian side. In fact, the Chinese side is that just border wing guards and nothing else. So these are some of the reasons why this kind of development is happening at such hectic pace.
Okay, Ambassador Dogra, does it also indicate the fact that the Chinese are going nowhere? They may be talking, and we may be waiting for a 13th co-commander meet and the next WMCC meet, but you know, the prophecy of the long haul is coming true.
Well, absolutely. In fact, as you mentioned right in the beginning of your introduction, that both sides probably are in for a better, long and harsh winter. Let's just hope that it does not turn out to be a hot winter. And if it has to be a hot winter, then October is the starting point, because thereafter snows start falling and offensive action or defensive action becomes that much more difficult. The reason why I'm saying that is that indications from China are not very good. The first president or the chairman of the party to ever visit as far as the LAC is President Xi, who did that a couple of weeks back. And the laying of the railway line right up to the LAC is another disturbing sign. The third disturbing sign that I see is the preparations they are making in terms of night exercises with paradrops and so on, and the large number of air bases which they have built now. They are not healthy signs of the Chinese intent. And our previous experience, a year and a half back, when they first intruded into various areas, was an indication that was given 6 months before the intrusion in terms of the exercises they had done on a large-scale model of Ladakh. So something like that seems to be repeating itself, but let's still hope that better sense prevails and it does not come to actual flare-up. Because a flare-up between countries the size of India and China would not be helpful to anyone, neither to them, nor to us, nor to the world peace. And that is why I think our ambassador in Beijing did well to give a signal that we have to be fair and we have to be straight in our dealings with each other. And we should not be confusing issues like boundary and border and so on in order to,
Okay.
think that the other side would be confused.
But General Hassan, does it suit China to keep not just the border question, but even the standoff brewing? That, you know, you need to put pressure on India, just raise the temperatures at the LAC. The standoff is in any case is on. All you need to do is pump in a little more troops. Does it suit China to be in the position that they are in right now?
See, Shreya, traditionally the Chinese have always used the Himalayan belt to a strategic effect. This famous debate between the continental domain and the maritime domain is the maritime domain where India enjoys a tremendous advantage because of the Indian Ocean and the proximity of the Indian peninsula to the Indian Ocean. The Chinese have always feared it. They always feel that it's necessary to keep India pressurized on the Himalayan belt, to keep our land preparedness at a higher level, perhaps expenditure at a higher level, so that our focus on the maritime zone where the real threats we can bring to bear on the Chinese do not really materialize. This has been the oldest discussion which has gone on in India's strategic circles. That is very much true even today. You can add a couple of more things to it. They are worried about our equations with Japan, with the United States, and now, of course, the Quad. And if the moment the Quad starts securitizing, that is going to be a great game changer as far as we can see our relations with China. But besides that, what's happening in Afghanistan today also perhaps tends to tempt the Chinese to put things in a bit of a limbo for the moment, so that let all this develop, let this regional situation develop itself around here, and that is how they'll probably at that stage the Chinese will think of doing anything a little more proactive. So whatever they're doing at the moment is preparedness. This infrastructure and development is the whole aspect is preparedness. But besides the issues which I brought out earlier, I would also like to add one very important aspect of preparedness as far as infrastructure is concerned, and that is psychological warfare. The moment you start doing this kind of thing, you show your expenditure, you actually bring an intent to bear on your adversary. We start reading it that way. Exactly what we are doing at the moment.
Absolutely.
So this is also a very important aspect, sending a message to your adversary that I am preparing myself and you are not good enough. I will come down and I will defeat you. This is the kind of thing which is happening at the moment.
Okay, Ambassador Dogra, I have just a minute and a half left, but I do want you to weigh in on this point. Is this lack of, you know, I don't know, push to try and resolve the border issue stemming from the fact that there is, of course, a growing closeness between India and America, and there is Quad in the equation? Of course, a lot has been said about how it's not a military alliance, how AUKUS has completely stolen its thunder, etc. But is this China also acting from a place of insecurity?
Well, certainly. I mean, things internationally are not going in their favor. It has got Russia on its side, it has got Pakistan on its side, and it has probably got North Korea solidly behind it. But the big players in the world, and that includes America, the entire NATO itself, and Australia and Japan, they are not with China. They have a bone to pick with China for one reason or the other. And India, of course, is a special case. So China is worried that if things start gelling against it, for example, whether it is AUKUS, the Australia, UK, US combined, which is clearly a strategic composition, and if the Quad sort of gets a move on, which it hasn't got so far.
Correct.
If it gets a move on, then again, it will not be to the advantage of China. So China is wary. I don't know whether it is worried already.
All right. We'll leave it there for the moment. Ambassador Dogra, good to have you on the show. General Hasnain, thank you very much for your time. We'll see how this situation develops. As you say, October is the time when the snow will come to eastern Ladakh, and that's when Indian troops once again and Chinese troops once again will be getting ready to spend another winter, a very harsh winter at some 14,000, 15,000 feet. On that note, a very quick break here on Debrief. Up next, China's cyber offensive against India and India's entities continue. What's the latest? That story coming up next. Do stay with us. Welcome back. As China continues its infrastructure build-up across the LAC, its cyber attacks on Indian entities continue as well. We have seen PLA-backed hackers break into India's power sector, India's aerospace industry, even India's telecommunication providers over the last 1 year. Now, Recorded Futures, it's a cybersecurity firm, says China has stepped up its game. Take a look. They bully us at sea, they bully us at the borders, they bully us online. The dragon is at it again. A new report by cybersecurity firm Recorded Future has made some stunning revelations. The report suggests Chinese state-sponsored hackers infiltrated and stole data from UIDAI and the Times Group. The UIDAI contains the private biometric data of over 1 billion Indians. The breach allegedly happened between June and July this year. Recorded Future, though, cannot clearly say what data has been stolen. The government agency, though, has feigned ignorance about any such cyber attack. UIDAI authorities maintain that its database is encrypted and is hidden behind a multi-factor authentication. The Times Group was targeted between February and August, but again, it's not clear what data was stolen. The company dismissed the report, saying that the exfiltration was blocked because of its cybersecurity defenses. Responding to the Times Group comment, the lead analyst of the report, Jonathan Condra, said, "I was able to observe sustained communications across a single session that lasted 5 days from the media company's networks. There was also a strong indication that the communications were coming from within the Times computer networks and going out to malicious servers, which suggests a successful implant communicating outwards." A type of malware called Vinti was reportedly used. Vinti is an old tool that is commonly used by state-sponsored hacking groups. The other tools deployed was Cobalt Strike, a piece of software typically used for network defenses. As expected, the Chinese government has denied any hand in this. There has been a 261% rise in cyber attacks into Indian networks in the past 1 year. Earlier this year, Recorded Futures had said that a China-linked hacker group was targeting India's power sector, its aerospace industry, and telecommunication providers, including BSNL. These cyber intrusions trace back to the deadly clashes in the Galwan Valley. China talks peace but walks proxy wars. India must be wary because a snake is often disguised as a dragon. With Natasha Menden in New Delhi, I'm Shreya Dhondial. Cyber warfare is the next frontier of war. The state targets the enemy's energy sources, electricity grids, health systems, traffic control systems, water supply, communications, sensors, all through cyber warfare. There is effectiveness with deniability, and that is what works for it. With that, it's a wrap from me. Thanks for watching.